Yo, what is up guys? It's me Exactly, back bringing you some of the most fire recaps on the internet. We got 7 games of NBA action to go over today, so let's not waste any more time. Let's just get right into this. So yesterday, I was a bit discouraged by the fact that Stephen Curry decided to make his return against my Detroit Pistons. I was like, out of all of the games in the world, why does Curry have to come back for this one? I was nervous. I was expecting a loss, but at the end of the game, I was surprised, as it was still the Pistons who got the win in this one, 111-102, Detroit's 5th straight win. And I do my best to try and treat the Pistons as fairly as I possibly can on this channel. I'm a huge die-hard Pistons fan, and I do my best to try and suppress that every video and not give them special treatment. But at the end of the day, I am a Pistons fan, and I'm extremely excited about how good this team has been looking over these past 5 games. And watching the Pistons beat the Warriors last night gave me the inspiration to talk about what I'm about to talk about in this video, which is basically teams and or players around the league who are having sort of a resurgent comeback year. And the first one of those players that I'm going to be talking about today is of course Blake Griffin, as his play last night and on the entire season so far was really what got me thinking about this. As before the season started, and ever since he was traded to Detroit, honestly, talk about Blake Griffin being washed up and no longer an all-star level player in the NBA seemed to be never ending. And I gotta call out my guy Legend of Winning specifically for a video that he made before the start of the season talking about why Blake Griffin was essentially an outdated player in today's NBA. A video which at the time a lot of people agreed with Legend of Winning's points that he was bringing up. Yet despite all of that, this year you can make a strong argument that Blake Griffin is playing some of the best basketball of his career, at least statistically speaking, averaging just under 25 points as well as 9.5 rebounds and over 5 assists per game. And he has also become a legitimate threat from outside, shooting 36% from 3. And the argument that was being used against Blake Griffin was that he is no longer, quote, an ideal power forward in today's NBA, with small forwards essentially taking over the power forward spots due to their, quote, versatility and also their ability to switch onto perimeter players better. But Blake Griffin so far this year has definitely been showing that there's still a place in the NBA for more traditional power forward, and he has been taking upon himself to really try and punish teams who don't have a power forward who is big enough or strong enough to try and contain him when he operates out of the post. And all of a sudden, because of Blake Griffin's play so far this season, I'm starting to hear a lot less of the Pistons gave up way too much to get Blake Griffin. You don't really hear that anymore. Instead, it seems like this was just a trade that worked out really well for both teams. Speaking of that Blake Griffin trade from the Los Angeles Clippers, that's going to be the next team that we have to talk about, the Los Angeles Clippers, as they have been having a resurgent season, I guess you could call it, as LA still has the best record in the Western Conference at 15-6, and they're doing this without a star player. And someone left a comment in one of my videos the other day saying that the reason this Clippers team is impressing me is because it should remind me of the 04 Pistons a bit, in the sense of they don't have a bona fide star, yet they play really hard without an ego and play together. And I can kind of see the points they were trying to make, but that's not 100% the reason why I like the Clippers this year. First off, the reason I started keeping tabs on LA more hardcore is because of Tobias Harris. He was one of my favorite players during his time in Detroit. I even have his Pistons jersey. And because he was traded to LA, naturally I'm going to be following the Clippers a bit more just because I wanted to see how Harris is doing. While at the same time, I did find myself wishing that we didn't have to trade Tobias Harris to get Blake Griffin, because if we could have both right now, if the Pistons had a player like Tobias Harris, they'd be up there with the Celtics, the Raptors, and the Sixers among the top teams in the Eastern Conference. And by the way, Tobias Harris has been amazing so far this season. He is the Clippers' leading scorer, and on most nights he is their primary offensive option. And the only reason I say most nights is because on other nights the primary option seems to be a player named Montrezl Harrell. And Harrell is a player that I have really come to enjoy watching play during my time watching Tobias Harris play for the Los Angeles Clippers. And talking about the most improved players this year, most fans will be quick to mention the name Zach LaVine, or maybe Buddy Hield or De'Aaron Fox from Sacramento, and then a few will throw the name Montrezl Harrell out there. I think though that Harrell should be at the top of that list. This guy is now a guy that teams legit have to game plan for coming off the Clippers bench, because if they don't, he is very liable to drop 25 to 30 points on your head. And even if you do game plan for him, he could still very well drop 25 to 30 points on your head. Next up though is the Sacramento Kings. Now, I wouldn't say that the Kings are necessarily having, quote, a comeback season, just because it's been over 10 years since they were actually good, and I don't think taking 10 years to get good can be called a comeback. This just makes them more of a surprise team, like surprise, all of a sudden they're good. And there have been a few players responsible for the Kings' improved play this year. De'Aaron Fox has been godly. Cauley Stein is looking a lot better. Even Iman Shumpert has had his moments for Sacramento. But none of those guys are really the players that I want to talk about here, because who I want to talk about is Buddy Hield. And I'm not going to sit up here and act like I was a believer in Buddy Hield all along. I'm not going to front like I hadn't lost all faith in Buddy Hield and thought he was about to become a streaky shooter off some team's bench at best in his career. And that's because when a player is coming out of college and they're talked up to be such a great shooter, yet despite that, once they get to the NBA, they struggle to shoot consistently, it's just not a good look. Of course, people are going to start to lose faith in that player, and that's exactly what Buddy Hield was for the first 2 years of his career. It's not like he couldn't shoot. He had games where he did look as good as advertised, but in his first 2 seasons, it was just his consistency that was really bugging me. I compare his play in his first 2 seasons to something like we're seeing out of KCP right now. When you watch Kentavious Caldwell-Pope play some nights, you're like, dang, this guy could be really good. Look at him out there hitting all of those shots. He's about to drop a 30 bomb. But then the very next game, he'll go 0-15 from the field. That was exactly who Buddy Hield was his first 2 years in the league. And sadly, that's still who KCP is today. This one's going to be real quick because it's the one that everyone saw coming. There's no way you could mention comebacks this year without mentioning the name Derrick Rose, as everyone has been talking about the comeback of Derrick Rose this year, and it's well deserved. Ever since he had that 50-point game on Halloween, Rose has still been playing at a much higher level compared to years past. On the year, he's averaging nearly 20 points per game, but that's not even the most impressive part. The most impressive part is how well he's been shooting the ball from 3. Derrick Rose is hitting almost 50% of his 3-point attempts while taking almost 4 attempts per game. In full disclosure, this isn't prime D Rose that we're seeing. This isn't MVP Derrick Rose, because Derrick Rose has more or less reinvented himself for what his body can handle in the playstyle of today's NBA, as opposed to trying to play like the same player he was back when he won that MVP award. And the last team that I want to talk about today though is the Memphis Grizzlies. If you were subscribed to this channel last season, then you already know that I mocked and ridiculed and called the Grizzlies trash to no end last year. They were awful, and because of that, even though I knew Mike Conley was coming back healthy this year, I still had very low expectation for them as a team. I thought, it's just Mike Conley. He can't come back and turn this 20-win Grizzlies team into a 45 to 50-win team again this year. And because of that, I'm now eating my words. I look like a straight up fool for undermining the value of Mike Conley to this Memphis Grizzlies team. The reason the Grizzlies are good again though isn't solely because of Mike Conley. Another player that has a big reason to do with this is the rookie Jaren Jackson Jr. But for the majority of the part, it is because of Mike Conley. Conley has probably been the single biggest reason as to why Memphis has to be taken seriously again, as Memphis is once again looking like the team that no one in the Western Conference is going to want to have to deal with in the early rounds of the playoffs, just because you know how hard it's going to be to beat them. You know that all of the games are going to be slow and grindy, and that if you don't execute to perfection, that you're most likely going to lose, unless of course you are a team like the Warriors, whose sheer amount of talent can allow for a few mistakes here and there. But for everyone else in the Western Conference, it's going to be a different story. That's it for that. I'm done giving love to those teams, alright? I'm not gonna be overhyping them anymore, so now let's get into the other games and teams from last night. And to start off the other games, never in my life have I seen something so disrespectful on the basketball court. Do you guys know the amount of nerve that Mario Hezonja had to do what he did to Giannis Antetokounmpo yesterday? All right, so the viral clip of the day from yesterday was for sure this one: Mario Hezonja dunking over Giannis Antetokounmpo and then stepping over him like Allen Iverson did to Tyronn Lue.
It's such a tough matchup. Hezonja picks off the bad pass. Hezonja drives it, Middleton finishes, and then stares and walks over Antetokounmpo, and taught there from Mario Hezonja waves on in the crowd.
Now, if Mario Hezonja was having the night of his life, if up until that point he had been going head to head, toe to toe with Giannis all game long and was even getting the better of Giannis, maybe he had like 35-ish points. Mario Hezonja was dropping 35 points this game and then did this, and this was the icing on the cake right here, then it wouldn't be as disrespectful. Now it would still be a little bit disrespectful because Mario Hezonja has no business stepping over Giannis Antetokounmpo, but I could at least see why he thought it might be okay. But the thing is, this was the only shot Mario Hezonja made at all last night. He didn't score again, yet he still had the nerve to step over Giannis Antetokounmpo. This is like the same thing as if Tyronn Lue was the person who was stepping over Allen Iverson. Not even Tyronn Lue, because he was still a respectable NBA player, great defender in his day. This would be like if Smush Parker stepped over Allen Iverson. And Giannis after this game wasn't too happy about it either. It's when he was asked how he felt after being stepped over by Mario Hezonja, this is what he had to say.
When you're done for me, stepped over you, does that bother you?
Oh yeah, I'm punching me in the stomach next time.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you guys remember what Giannis Antetokounmpo did to Tim Hardaway Jr. last year? Yeah, well, something along those lines is probably about to happen to Mario Hezonja the next time the Knicks play the Bucks. Jaylen Brown sat out again, and when you look at that, the Boston Celtics win again. And not even just win, but the Boston Celtics start looking like the Boston Celtics again. And even better than that is, Gordon Hayward even started looking like Gordon Hayward again. His best game as a Celtic by far, with 30 points, 9 rebounds, and 8 assists. I do want to say though that I don't have anything personal against Jaylen Brown. Some people think I have this hatred towards Jaylen Brown and think he's not a great player. No, Jaylen Brown is a fantastic young player. I have nothing personal against him whatsoever. If my Pistons can get him, I'd be all for it. He'd be great on a lot of teams. He's going to be a great player. It's just that the Celtics weren't meshing that well, and there's no denying that they have been playing better with Brown out of the lineup. That's all I'm trying to say. And I'm not saying that the Celtics need to start looking to trade Brown right now. That would be insane. They should still put him back in the starting lineup when he comes back. But what I am saying is, now that they know that they can win without Jaylen Brown, that they can look really good without Jaylen Brown, if Jaylen Brown comes back, and the Celtics up until that point were on a 3, 4, 5, 6 game winning streak. However, once Jaylen Brown comes back, they start playing like the Celtics from earlier in the season. That's when the Boston Celtics are going to have to take a serious look at this situation and make a hard decision. Next up though, the Sacramento Kings versus the Indiana Pacers. And for the Pacers' sake, I really hope Oladipo was able to play again very soon, because they have for sure been struggling as of late without him, as Indy drops another game, this time to the Kings, who won it off a Willie Cauley-Stein tip-in during the closing seconds of the fourth quarter. And even though Sacramento is a lot improved this year compared to like the last 12-ish years, they're still a young team, and this won't be the year that their playoff drought ends. But finally, we can at least say that they're headed in the right direction. Now, it's just up to the front office not to screw this up again. And to no one's surprise, the Toronto Raptors beat the Cleveland Cavaliers 106-95. Kawhi Leonard scoring a game-high 34 points and Toronto's 20th win of the season, as they might be on pace to reach that 70 win mark this year. The Houston Rockets put this game away in the first quarter. They weren't even going to let the Bulls think for a second that they had a shot at winning this game. And Chicago got the message loud and clear and just let the Rockets claim their easy 121-105 victory. James Harden with 30 points on the night. And lastly, like I said in yesterday's video, the Washington Wizards will sometimes be able to beat the teams that they are supposed to beat. This was one of those times, as the Wizards defeat the Nets 102-88 behind John Wall and his 30 points and 9 assists. I do feel bad for Brooklyn though, because before LeVert went down, it looked like they might actually have been able to compete for one of the last spots in the East this year, but now that's just out the window. That though is going to lead us to the player of the day, where you guys had the opportunity to vote for who you think was the best player in the league last night by clicking the little eye icon at the top right hand corner of the video. Just remember though that only the players whose team won are eligible to win Player of the Day. And yesterday, that player had to be Jaren Jackson Jr. and his 36 points and 8 rebounds. That does it for everything that we got to talk about in this one though. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did, then why not consider subscribing to the channel with post notifications turned on so you don't miss out on more daily NBA videos. Thank you once again for watching though. You guys already know that you are the real MVPs, and until next time, I'm out of here. Peace!